Hi, my dear grandchildren and great-grandchildren. This is Gigi. How are you doing? I hope all of you are doing fantastic. I know that it's almost Thanksgiving, and then guess what? It comes after Thanksgiving. Can you remember? I bet you do. It's gonna be so exciting. It's Christmas. And maybe we'll even have a big Christmas party like we did last year. I don't know. We might. We'll have to see and find out. And if we do, I hope everybody can come. It would be so much fun to have all our grandchildren and great-grandchildren at the Christmas party. Now, last year's Christmas party was given by Cheryl and Sean and Lexi. And so many of us had so much fun, but not everybody was there. And we miss you when you're not there. We would like everybody to be there if we have one this year. Now, Grandma and Grandpa, or Gigi and Grandpa, are just, it's a little too much for us to have it on our own anymore. So everybody has to help us. And that's why Cheryl did it last year. So we'll see who has it this year. But you know, whoever has it, we can always use the hall here in the park because that's big enough for everybody. Well, guess what? I have a special guest here tonight just to say hi to you. And you know who this is. This is Ellie, and she's got this special dress on. Look at that pretty little dress. She looks so good in yellow with her red hair, doesn't she? It's kind of messy a little bit, Ellie. Your mommy didn't comb it very good, did she? Anyway, we've also got a couple of other babies back here. This is Jackie. I don't know if you've met Jackie or not, but she's a very special doll. And someday I might tell you why she's so special. And this is a very special baby too. And this is a newborn baby. Jackie, she's probably about 3 months old. And little Miss, this one is called Cece. And that was the name that her mommy gave her before. And before she let me adopt her. And actually, I can tell you about Jackie. She was given to me because I entered a contest and I won her. So I got to adopt her too. And anyway, so now I've got 3 little babies in my nursery. And they're so much fun. I love playing with these babies. And they've got clothes. I change their clothes. Yeah, and I just have fun with them. And sometime maybe my granddaughters or great-granddaughters can come and play too. But I have a special story in our reading room today. And this is just for Christmas. I know it's not Christmas yet, but I wanted to read it because I wrote it for a contest. Now, I don't expect that I will win anything, but if I do, I'll be winning another baby. But there's over 300 people that entered this contest, so if I win, I'll have to give God all the glory. Anyway, I'm going to have to read it because I didn't memorize it. So excuse me while I have the paper right up here because I can't see very well anymore. Anyway, the name of this story is Holly's Special Christmas. Holly was so excited she could hardly contain herself. One more day and her family was going on a very special Christmas vacation. Her dad worked for a toy company that had a store in the little town of North Pole, Alaska. To her dad and mom, it was just another little town in a cold place out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded with a lot of snow. But not to Holly. She knew better. You see, she believed in Santa Claus. To Holly, an 8-year-old, it was the dream of her young life. She was going to see the real Santa Claus. She could hardly sleep that last night from the excitement she felt. The next day, as they flew over miles and miles of snow-covered mountains and valleys, she got so tired of waiting for it to end, she found herself nodding off and finally fell fast asleep. But all of a sudden, she was jerked awake as the plane landed on the hard, icy ground. "Are we there, Daddy? Are we there?" She excitedly pulled at the sleeve of his jacket. "Yes, sweetheart, we are. Make sure you get all your things together. We'll be unloading soon." Oh boy, she yelled. "I get to see Santa." "Well," her dad said, "don't get your heart set on it. You know he might not be here. He has a lot of ground to cover over the next few weeks to get ready for Christmas." He didn't want Holly to be disappointed when she found out it was just another little town and probably not even big enough to have someone to play Santa. Although, as he thought about it, why wouldn't they? They were big enough to have a store they wanted him to check on. He felt very fortunate that his company paid for his family to go with them because of the holiday season. As the plane came to a stop at the end of the runway, he looked out of the window and came to the realization that he might have to rethink his previous conclusion of what the little town of North Pole was like. For one thing, there were Christmas lights on every building and every street lamp in the town, for as far as his eyes could see. They even had a sleigh being pulled by a reindeer with a sign that read, "Rudolph welcomes you to the North Pole," coming out to the plane to take them to town. The sleigh was covered with jingle bells that made music every time the sleigh was in motion. He noticed a big plum-covered velvet sack on the other side of the sleigh. He was hoping Holly didn't see it and start asking questions. Well, maybe his little Holly won't be disappointed after all, he mused. Holly was beside herself with excitement. She went skipping and jumping down the steps of the plane until she almost fell because of the ice. That really slowed her down. But she was so excited to see all the lights and even Rudolph. It was the real Rudolph. She could tell because his nose was red and bigger than normal, although it wasn't bright. His nose must be bright only when he is flying, she decided. They all piled into the sled, and at the front of the sled, holding the reins, was an elf. "Wow, there are elves here, Daddy," Holly yelled. All of a sudden, the sleigh started moving. It felt like it was floating on air. Dad, we're flying. Rudolph is really flying. Look at his nose, Daddy, look at his nose." It was so much fun, but it seemed like her mom and dad weren't having a lot of fun. They were in shock. She looked at them both, and they were holding on tight to the edge of the sleigh, and their eyes were as round as saucers. But Holly was having the time of her life. She wasn't scared at all. She was taking in all the sights with excitement. Every building and every street light was covered in colorful twinkling lights, and every block had its own Christmas tree all covered with lights, bows of ribbon, ornaments, and even candles. Holly could hardly wait to see Santa. She believed in him. She just knew he was real, no matter what her dad and mom said. She was so deep in thought, she didn't even realize they had stopped. right in front of a huge building covered in lights and built like a castle. "It's Santa's house! It's Santa's house!" she yelled. "We are here! We are really here! I get to meet the real Santa!" "Oh my," Holly thought. "I can't believe this is really happening." All of a sudden she could hear laughter and Christmas carols coming from the castle. She heard a man laughing and saying, "Merry Christmas! Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!" in a deep, loud voice. Just as she was about to go into the castle, something outside to the right of the huge building caught her eye. It was a little three-sided building. It didn't have all the colored lights like the castle did. It didn't have any lights at all, and yet there was light coming from the inside of the little building. Holly was suddenly no longer interested in what was going on inside the big castle. She wanted to find out what was causing the light in the little building. She knew she needed to find out. It was important. She walked over to the little building, and her mom and dad were following her to see what she was so interested in. As they got closer to the building, they saw a donkey and a cow standing outside. That's really strange. What is a donkey and a cow doing here?" She could hear beautiful singing coming from inside the building. They were singing Noel. She could hear a voice speaking in a soft, quiet voice. It sounded a lot like the voice from the castle, but yet different. As she peered into the little building, what she saw stopped her in her tracks. A man was standing behind a woman holding a little baby, and she realized the light she had seen was coming from the baby. Holly was mesmerized. She realized she knew who that was. It was baby Jesus. But what was baby Jesus doing there? As if her thoughts were being read, the man whose voice she had heard started talking to her from the darkness on the other side of the building. "Holly, baby Jesus is here because if it wasn't for him, Santa Claus, wouldn't be here. He is the reason Christmas is celebrated. Not for all the presents you can give and receive. You see, it was because of God's love for us that he sent his Son to earth to be born. He was sent to ultimately bring peace and joy. If we accept him as our Lord and Savior, Jesus is the best present anyone could receive." Holly all of a sudden understood the true meaning of Christmas. It wasn't about meeting Santa Claus or getting presents. She finally understood what her Sunday school teacher was trying to teach her and the other kids in her class. And that was that Jesus was the real present. Now it wasn't as important to her to meet Santa. Seeing baby Jesus and understanding the real meaning of Christmas was much more exciting. She would never forget this most special Christmas, the Christmas she met baby Jesus. So what did you think about that story about Holly meeting baby Jesus? And you know, each one of us, we can all meet Jesus too. Jesus loves us very much. All we have to do is ask him into our hearts and say, "Jesus, I love you. Please forgive me for everything I've ever done wrong." And he is going to come into your heart, and he loves you so much. He loves you and you and you. He loves all of you, and he loves me too, and he loves your mommies and daddies, and your aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas and your friends. He loves everybody. Well, it's time for me to say good night. Until next time, this is Gigi at Gigi's Reading Room. Good night. I love you.